Well, good evening and welcome along. It's another game under the lights here at King Power Stadium as Leicester City host Leeds United in yet another massive Premier League game. With all of tonight's team news with a kick-off just an hour away, here's our commentator, John Dunn.
Good evening, Dan. Let's start with Leicester, who make two changes following the 0-0 draw here against Crystal Palace at the weekend. We knew of one of them with James Maddison being suspended. Dennis Pratt comes in to replace him. And there's a change in attack as Jamie Vardy comes in for Patson Daka. Danny Ward, then the Leicester goalkeeper, with a defence of Timothy Castagna, Daniel Amati, Wout Faes and James Justin. A midfield of Bouba Samore, Yuri Tillemans and Keenan Dewsbury Hall, with Dennis Pratt alongside Jamie Vardy and Harvey Barnes in a front three. The Leicester subs are Daniel Everson, Kelechi Iheanacho, Ayose Perez, Patson Daka, Yannick Vestergaard, Pape Mende, Luke Thomas, Sammy Braybrook and Joe Wormleighton. Four changes for the visitors' Leeds. They were beaten 1-0 at home to Arsenal on Sunday. There's an injury to Pascal Struijk. We assume that leading scorer Rodrigo is injured as well. He's not involved. And Liam Cooper and Jack Harrison both moved to the bench. Junior Firpo, Patrick Bamford, Diego Llorente and a first Premier League start for Saint-Kento Somerville for Leeds, with Illan Millier in goal. And back four, Rasmus Christensen, Diego Llorente, Robin Koch and Junior Firpo are back four. Tyler Adams and Mark Rocker in the centre midfield, with Brendan Aronson, Luis Sinestra and Chrysenko Somerville supporting Patrick Bamford in that lone striking role. The lead subs, Christopher Clarkson, Luke Ayling, Liam Cooper, Jack Harrison, Wilfred Gonotto, Joel Gelhardt, Sam Greenwood and Matthias Klick.
Very much, John. Yeah, we'll hear from you just before kick-off as you'll be on co-commentary duty alongside Jerry Taggart, and we can also speak to Jerry in around about 25 minutes or half an hour or so. Firstly, we've got to introduce the guests that we'll be speaking to before then. That's Ewan Roberts on Zoom and Matt Elliott in the studio alongside me. Good evening, Matt. It's another massive game for the Foxes tonight.
Evening, Batesy. Yeah, been a few of them lately, haven't they? Found ourselves saying that quite regularly, but even more so tonight. I mean, the other ones of any game, Premier League, is important. Of course it is, particularly in the situation that Leicester find themselves in at this moment in time. But each game increases in importance levels, doesn't it? Because you can't afford to be loitering around the bottom of the table or the absolute foot of it at the moment, as Leicester stand, and also run the risk of other teams increasing that gap between Leicester and the other side. So hugely important, I think, tonight. I think overall there's still time regardless of tonight's result, but it would go a hell of a long way to easing some concerns, shall we say, because the clock ticks, doesn't it, and the games trickle by as well. So big performance needed in this run of games as well. Leicester have had, Bournemouth expecting a win there, didn't happen. Palace, you're hoping to nick a win at least, didn't happen tonight. They need to make something to happen, really, and looking forward to it because the tension's there, but so's the expectancy.
Good. I must say you're looking very smart as well in your new suit alongside me, Matt.
You didn't have to say it, but thank you anyway.
Ewan Roberts looking smart as well in your kitchen, joining us via Zoom, of course. Good evening to you.
Good evening, lads. How are we?
Good, very good,
mate.
Thank you.
Good, thank you. You?
Good.
Looking forward to this one?
Stan, I mean, you've spoken about it there. It's a massive game, these next two. This one tonight against Leeds, it was 16th, just 4 points in front of Leicester, and then obviously Wolves on Sunday, 4 points in front of Leicester, third from bottom. Two massive games which could be key for Leicester City's season. We can try and be as positive as we can. We can try and take the positives from performances in the opening 10 games, but there comes a time when the lads have to grab the season by the scruff of the neck and string a run of results together. And I'm just hoping it starts tonight.
Yeah, let's hope it does start tonight, and of course lead into Sunday. Before we start talking about the game this evening, let's have a quick look at what we are going to be talking about here on Matchday Live this evening. Kick off just under an hour away, of course, here at King Power Stadium. We're going to look back at the game that took place at the weekend against Crystal Palace. Not too much to look back on, but there was a really good save there from Danny Ward. He happens to also be the interview this week, so we'll speak to. We'll also take a closer look at Leeds United, of course. Jesse Marsh's first game in charge of Leeds was against Leicester in this fixture, and we'll of course hear from Brendan Rodgers as well. So Matt, obviously, as you've already said, that maybe nerves starting to kick in a little bit amongst the supporters, and how important is it that they're right on it tonight, like they were against Forest just over 2 weeks ago now?
I think the nerves kicked in a little while ago, didn't they? But ever increasing maybe, because the concern continues, doesn't it? And the win or the amount of wins that Leicester would expect, have not been occurring. So it's it's a big occasion, as we mentioned. It's a big game as well, isn't it? Leeds, it's quite obviously historically a massive club. They'll bring a huge following down, even on a Thursday evening at 8:15 kick-off. So the atmosphere will be set. But the Leicester fans, I'm sure they will play their part without a doubt. I thought they were decent at the weekend, all things considered, against Crystal Palace. So it does have a different feel about it in comparison to the Forest game. Local rivalry, evening kick-off, Monday night. That's desperation almost to make sure that you came out on top against East Midland rivals, and happened for such a long time. And then on Saturday, with that early kick-off, it does sort of detract from it a touch, and you need something to stir them. But they were there when the players needed them, and they saw a reasonable performance. I think they recognised that. So that affects the mood. It works both ways, doesn't it? It affects the mood of the supporters, depending on how the performance is going. They see the effort going in, which is usually the case. But tonight I think it'll be up a notch from what it was at the weekend. The evening kickoffs do that, don't they? Yeah. And it's been pretty intense out there.
Yeah, I was going to say and I think from a supporter's point of view, and maybe a player's point of view, you've both played in evening games, be it at Filbert Street or wherever it might have been. Do you feel like in the evening it's easy for the supporters to get up for it, and B, even players, a later kick-off as opposed to a 12:30?
No, I much preferred it. I mean, it means you can go to bed for a couple of hours in the afternoon. I felt sharper, I felt fitter, I was raring to go. You get to the ground a couple of hours before kick-off, completely the opposite to a Saturday. You're up early, you're walking the dog or whatever you do. You get to the ground about 1 o'clock, and the game's soon upon you. It's completely different at night. As a player, I just felt totally different to what I did on a Saturday.
Well, let's take a look back at Saturday then. Of course, that was an early kick-off, 12:30. It was against Crystal Palace, and it ended goalless.
The new Premier League season for Leicester City as they welcome Crystal Palace to King Power Stadium. The two teams walk out into a glorious autumnal Saturday lunchtime, and the Foxes are looking for back-to-back home wins. Oh, that's great from Barnes. He's got beyond Joel Ward in towards Daka. Lovely one too. Barnes just slightly overhit it, and Guaita makes the save. Best Leicester move after 16 minutes, still 0-0. Tielemans put under pressure, but he has picked a glorious pass to Dewsbury Hall. Dewsbury Hall, can he release Patson Daka? Daka shoots, Guaita turns it behind for a corner. To Leicester, they can't find the opener yet, but that was excellent football once more, 0-0. Zaha hasn't really had a chance to run at the defence yet. He tees up, Eze shot, whistles over the bar. Ward didn't get a touch. That was mighty close from Eberechi Eze to 1-0 in the 43rd minute. What a pass from Dewsbury Hall to Barnes. Barnes back to Madison, who for once doesn't connect, and his left-footed shot goes over the bar. Tielemans, can he pick that up in central midfield? He can, and he feeds Madison. Madison shapes to shoot, does shoot, and it's wide of the right-hand post. Tielemans wanted the return pass. Madison went for goal, and despite this Leicester pressure in the second half, it is still 0-0. Here's Edouard, who clips beyond a couple and shoots. And Danny Ward makes a big save down to his right-hand side. Again, it will be swung in, and Guaita doesn't get there. It was Castagna, I think, who got the final touch, and it bounces through to the Spaniard who makes the save. Marty does well against Mateta. Pratt releases Iheanacho. Iheanacho up to the edge of the box. He's still going. Iheanacho, can he get a shot away? Pulls it back to Dewsbury Hall. It's deflected wide. Maddison was free. Vardy was free as well.
Yeah, frustrating afternoon, I guess. Kieran Dewsbury Hall, could maybe Ewan Roberts have just squared that to James Maddison, who was on the near of the picture. Obviously, we know Leicester will be without him this evening.
Looking back at the highlights, Dan, you realise Leicester got in some really good positions, had some good chances. James Maddison has been outstanding for Leicester City in the last couple of seasons. I think he'll be disappointed with the two chances that he had, but he didn't add to the tally, his goals tally this season. And as you say there, that last one where Dewsbury Hall, and he sort of bought himself a little bit of time and just glanced to his left-hand side, you would have seen James Maddison completely unmarked. He could have sort of put the right pressure on the pass, or the right weight on the pass, and James would have come onto it with his right foot, and you would have fancied him to score. But looking back at the game, created some good chances. Did create some good chances. At the time, I thought about the game, and I couldn't remember the Palace keeper making too many top-class saves in the game. But that was probably because of the lack of clinical finishing from Leicester on the day. But absolutely, they got themselves in some really good situations, some really good positions. And if they can do the same tonight, if they can create the amount of chances that they did on Saturday against Palace, tonight against Leeds, I'm convinced they'll go on to win the game.
We've spoken a lot this season, Matt. I'm sure you felt like a broken record at times about the defence and about how it's not looked particularly sturdy, whereas the last two home games, 2 clean sheets. Danny Ward pulled off a really good save, didn't he, at his near post against Palace. They're massive positives.
Yeah, I think Palace were limited in their attacking prowess, but much of the credit has to go to Leicester, I think, for nullifying them really, and keeping them to a minimum of opportunities. Palace are a funny side to play against. It's sort of stop-start, and it's quite bitty against them. We struggle to sort of find any real rhythm, so you have to grind it out a little bit, but stay secure, because they're quite quick to sort of capitalise on any sloppiness or slackness. And Leicester were well marshalled really defensively. Obviously Fass, I think, was probably the chief reason for that. I think a lot of people's eyes, man of the match, deservedly so. And he's come in, and produced a steadiness, a calmness, despite making a couple of mistakes himself, against Bournemouth and even against Forest. But his general play, he looks good. He looks calm and assured. That filters through to the rest of the team, as does Johnny Evans when he plays. But yeah, they have to take some credit. I thought it was their best defensive performance. That might be a bit obvious to say, with the clean sheet. But
one of only 2.
Well, exactly. Yeah. So you look at that, you think, well, yeah, of course it was. But it was much more. I thought it was much more sort of authentic or more convincing than it was against Forest. Forest could have scored 2, maybe even 3. Leicester could have scored 5 or 6. Leicester deserved to win the game comfortably. Don't get me wrong, the better team. Against Palace, that was it gave a little bit of a platform. You saw that, okay, a few shortcomings offensively, but Leicester had reasonable situations, as Ewan just said. I'd have to agree with that, and a bit more slickness and quality. Hopefully we'll see that tonight. They go and win the game, but they're giving themselves a chance. They're giving themselves a chance without a doubt.
As a forward player, Ewan, when you were playing and when you were in teams where you had a lot more confidence in the defence, how much did that help you? How much more confidence did it give you going into a game?
It's a difference, Dan, as a forward, when you haven't got confidence in your back four and your goalkeeper. And we're leaking goals for fun. We're not keeping clean sheets. As a forward, or as a strike partnership back then, we always used to say it's as if we had to score 2 or 3 goals to get anything from the game. There'd be times where we'd be going into games thinking we've got to at least get 2 to get a point. I'm not saying that's the case now. I'm really not, because I think Leicester are more than capable of keeping more clean sheets. They've given themselves a base in the last 2 games. A good clean sheet against Nottingham Forest, another one against Crystal Palace. Who came into the game with a bit of confidence after the win that they had the previous game to the Leicester one. But yeah, it's not a good feeling, I have to say, as a forward when you know. Yeah, and it's a hard one, Dan, because at the end of the day, you attack as a team and you defend as a team. It's not them and us. But centre forwards are selfish. Centre forwards are selfish, and they'll always find and put blame on other people. They won't expect it, and they won't accept it themselves.
Well, as you said, it is defending as a team. That's one thing that Danny Ward actually said this week when we sat down together at Seagrave to look ahead to the game against Leeds. Danny, firstly, let's talk about the season as a whole, because I think in general terms as a group you're probably very disappointed with where Leicester are and how they've started this season.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not what any of us wanted, really. But the key at this moment in time is to stay positive. We know the talent and the characters that we have in that changing room. There's been times in games where we've shown what a good team that we are, and maybe we've had another half or 30 minutes where we've not come out and shown our true face, which is obviously disappointing. Where we are in the league is where we are. But that's something that we've got to look forward to the game Thursday and put things right.
You're obviously here at Seagrave every single day, and you're in amongst the atmosphere. Whenever we come down and visit, everything is still jovial. The spirits are still high, which is clearly a good sign.
Yeah, it has to be. I mean, there's a good team spirit here amongst the boys, and I've said before, we know what we have in that changing room, not just as talent players, but we've got a lot of good characters in there. There's a good camaraderie within the group, and that's something that we're going to have to rely on in what's been a tough start for us. But slowly but surely we're looking to put them results from the first 10 games behind us and take positives and work on the things that we obviously haven't done so well.
How important is it, in your words, as you said, there are strong characters in there, how important is it that you can lean on those types of players?
Absolutely, it is, but also we're just a group in general. Everyone's friends, and if anyone's sort of struggling or if need to kick up the backside or an arm around the shoulder, you could come to anyone in that changing room. It's a great group of fellas who will welcome anyone with open arms.
It's a home game, of course, next up against Leeds United. In the last 2 home games, that there have been clean sheets. That must be a really confidence-boosting thing for not just yourself, but for the whole 11.
It is, but ultimately, you keep a clean sheet, it gives us a massive chance of winning a game of football. We've done that the last 2 times. Obviously, we couldn't just quite get over the line against Palace, but again, it's a foundation for us to build on. It's a positive to take moving forward, and if we can continue doing stuff like that, and the more clean sheets we keep, the more games of football you're likely to win.
Was it disappointing as a group on Saturday? Obviously, happy with the clean sheet and staying solid at the back, but just not being able to break them down.
Yeah, it was frustrating, but like you say, clean sheet's always good for confidence, and that's not just a goalkeeper and a defensive point of view. It starts from the front with the pressing and the midfield boys winning first and second balls and getting around there. But yeah, we felt like we had enough chances in the game and good moments in their final third to win the game. Obviously, we lacked that little bit of cutting edge at the end and a little bit of quality at the end, which is actually unlike us this season, considering where we are. But again, it's something to work on, and hopefully we'll put that right going forward.
Yeah, what are you expecting from Leeds in that game on Thursday?
Intensity. They press the game really well. They seem like we've got a good group of players who they work really hard and they won't give you a minute on the ball. That's something that we're going to have to deal with. Match their intensity and and their pressing and their running, and hopefully we'll have a game plan and we'll take that into the game.
The last night game at King Power Stadium against Nottingham Forest, the atmosphere was obviously incredible, wasn't it? How important was that evening, and hopefully we'll see a repeat of that being another night game on Thursday?
It was huge. I mean, not just the result, but the reception from the fans and that, it was absolutely fantastic. They created a great atmosphere, and stuff like that can't be downplayed. it gives the lads a real boost, and we could see that from the start we made in the game, where it was, the intensity was really high, and that wasn't just on the pitch, that was in the stands as well, and drove us forward in what was in the end a brilliant win.
What did you make, Ewan, of what Danny Ward had to say there? Particularly, obviously, looking at the confidence in the group and the camaraderie in the group. Clearly, that is something that they are together, and hopefully they can use that moving forward.
And if you lose that as a group, if you lose that as a dressing room, you've got no chance. It's going to take all that spirit, all that togetherness, all that camaraderie to get out of the predicament that Leicester are in. And we never, the club's always had that. For the past 6, 7, 8 years, the club's always had that team spirit within those four walls up at the training ground. And as I say, that's going to be vitally important to turn this season around. And it was great to hear Danny say that. It's been a tough time for Danny. I sympathise with him. I really feel for him. As we know, he's a Welshman. He's been great for Wales. He's had to be patient for many seasons. He's bided this time, and once he's been given his opportunity, it hasn't quite turned out for him. He's made a couple of mistakes. I think he'd be the first to admit that. But all of a sudden, 2 consecutive clean sheets. Hopefully he can build on that. But I think if any Leicester fan, hears that interview, and they'll be delighted, because, as I say, it's going to take all of those things to get Leicester out of that bottom 3 and climbing up that Premier League.
And I know it was a few weeks ago, I think it was Brighton away, Ewan, when I think it was Danny Ward, Wilfred Ndidi had a little bit of a go at each other on the pitch, but that shows that these players care.
Absolutely, I don't mind that. I don't mind that if you think someone's trying to pass a bit of blame onto your shoulders, you've got to stick up for yourself. I don't mind that at all. I don't mind players falling out. It happens on a daily basis at the training ground. You see it in games, Dan, and as you say, it just shows that they're human, and it just shows that they care. They care what happens to their football club. They care that they're performing well. It's not a nice feeling losing games and conceding goals, and they want to improve. They want to get better. They want to start winning games. They want to start climbing up that table. They want that feel-good factor around the city, around the football club, around the training ground, because it's been missing for the majority of this season. And let's hope that they can get that feel-good factor back within Leicester City in the next few days.
And winning games, if you keep a clean sheet, that makes it a heck of a lot easier, doesn't it? So to get 2 in the last 2 home games, I know we keep saying that, but it is important because of the way Leicester have started this season.
Yeah, of course it is, and you're looking for positives, etc. And it's always nice to get that clean sheet. It doesn't mean another one's going to follow. Doesn't mean you've cracked it at all. Far from it. And some people go on runs, don't they? Having those clean sheets and rightly proud of it, but ask them to explain why they've got it, what they're doing different from when they were conceding. And it's hard to sort of put your finger on it sometimes. It's just, keep plugging away, keep doing the basics right, working hard. A couple of little adjustments, and I think Leicester have done that. I think, without a doubt, the fullbacks, particularly left fullback James Justin, sitting a little bit more. Tielemans is sitting in a bit at times as well in midfield, more regularly over the last couple of games, etc. And Castagna, even he does bomb forward, but even he's having a little look over his shoulder, and it's a little bit more conservative, shall we say. And I think that's what Leicester needed to do. They needed to sort of give themselves a base, not concede goals loosely at any random stage of the game, particularly in the second half, as we know has been an issue. But stay in the game, and they've got the talent and ability going forward to do that. But listen, I think with Danny Ward as well, you mentioned it there, he has had a bit of a rocky time, I think it's fair to say. But I think that people have been a little bit quick to jump on the situation because of Kasper and the magnitude of his standing at the club. All of a sudden they're thinking, all right, Kasper's time's done. It's Danny Ward. Whoever it's going to be was going to be scrutinised too severely, I think. And even though Leicester have conceded a flurry of goals in a couple of games, that much he could do about the majority of them. 1 or 2 blips, yes, admittedly, but he's a more than decent keeper.
Yep, it's the other end of the pitch that could be key this evening, that will be key if Leicester want to get the 3 points this evening. That is, of course, scoring goals. It never seems to be dull whenever Leeds and Leicester meet. So let's take a look back at some crackers scored against the Yorkshire side.
Chance on for Bertrand, all the way. Oh, and it's a beautiful goal! What about that one with his left foot? 2-0 Leicester.
Here is Izzy to Cotti, and yes, Leicester City may be back in business. Tony Cotti again. Good finish by Cotti. Difficult angle, that was not easy, but again, he still has the craft.
Is it? Looking for Dean. Oh, and in came Scowcroft. Jamie Scowcroft has incredibly equalised for Leicester against all odds.
But he's picked out Craig Hignett. Behind Dickott, cleared by Morris. Nallis! What a goal! That is outstanding! A breathtaking first goal for Leicester for Lilian Nallis. Muzzy is it? It's Dickott. 3-0 for Leicester. A second for Dickott. And that surely is the goal that gives Leicester their first win back in the Premiership. Bradle's corner for Leicester City. Oh, they've done it! Stephen Howard! A giant goal from the big man! And that could just be enough if the day pans out well for Leicester to bounce back to the Championship. Cleared as far as King. Brilliant! Magnificent from Andy King! What a volley! Oh, he enjoyed that. He'll enjoy seeing it again.
Yeah, some absolute belters against Leeds, particularly that Lilian Nallis one, of course, a firm favourite amongst Leicester fans. Let's take a closer look then at tonight's opposition, Leeds United. Joe Donoghue from the Yorkshire Evening Post and Jesse Marsh have been assessing their start to the season so far. This on-the-pitch team talk after a 1-0 defeat came in Jesse Marsh's first game in charge of Leeds, which was, of course, at King Power Stadium back in March of this year. Fast forward 7.5 months since then, the American has kept Leeds up on the final day and overseen a fairly slow start to this season, which hasn't seen them win since August.
We feel that we've clearly made progress as a group. I've said a lot. I've sat here a lot and said we like our team, that we feel we have potential in this group, but it's been hard for us to pick up the points that often we feel that we've deserved. Often it comes in the form of not scoring enough goals, which helps you command the game more the way you would want to, not having enough leads. But we have to just stay strong in our belief and in our work and know that with the law of averages, or how that if we keep developing in this way, that eventually we're going to put ourselves in a position to be successful. So it's hard, like I've said a few times, but we have to stay positive and focused on the next match and make sure that we do everything we can now to fight for every single point.
While there have been some encouraging performances, or at least some 45-minute stints in which they've played decent football, they haven't really been able to put it together into a 90-minute performance over the past couple of weeks. Or in the case last weekend against Arsenal, they just weren't able to find a goal, which was as frustrating for the fans as it was unbelievable because of the various opportunities that they had. But I think the mood is still one which is, the supporters don't really think they'll end up being wrapped into a relegation battle, but at the same time, they know that this week's a very pivotal one.
That week that's being referred to there includes the trip to King Power Stadium, as well as a massive home game with Fulham on Sunday. The Leeds faithful will be hoping that this man, Patrick Bamford, can re-find his form in front of goal, as he's yet to find the back of the net this season.
He was on the bench against Arsenal, and he's been subbed off a couple of times or subbed on, so he's not been at 90-minute fitness yet this season. He's very, very important to the way the team play. He's robust enough to fulfill sort of a lonesome role up the top, but he's also good at linking the play as well. And that's very important for Jesse Marsch's style of play in particular, where the team are going to play very vertically and very centrally, just facilitating those little movements of interplay between the attacking players.
Thanks to Joe Donoghue there from the Yorkshire Evening Post, talking obviously about Patrick Bamford and Leeds United and the start that they've made to the season. Matt, they haven't actually won since August. In August, they had a flying start to the season, beating Chelsea at home 3-0 was a fantastic result for them.
Yeah.
Since then, things obviously haven't gone so well. You look at their recent form, their last few results, obviously struggling to get the points on the board at the moment.
Yeah, they'll be worried about that. Although the manager certainly outwardly seems quite upbeat, doesn't he? And keeps trumpeting up the abilities of his team, and rightly so. I think it's expected their form will sort of ebb and flow a bit, isn't it? But that defeat against Brentford is going to be a worry for them. They seem to sort of close results up since then. Funny team, aren't they? Quite unpredictable, really. They can squeeze and harry the life out of teams and get reward for it when they're properly on their game. But if they're a yard off, it can make such a big difference. If they're not quite in sync together, teams can almost cruise past them because they're quite open. Marsch coming in has tightened the ship and steadied the ship as well. But you don't quite know what to expect, apart from they're going to be up and at you and in your face as best they can. Danny Ward mentioned it, didn't he? But I think if you show enough quality in the game, more often than not, opposition of Leicester's quality will come out on top. So the incentive is there for Leicester to be right on their game.
Bamford is absolutely key for them, Ewan Roberts, isn't he? His goals, particularly in the last couple of seasons, have been vital, and maybe their recent slump is down to the fact that he's not really been fit enough this season.
He's not really had a run of games, Dan, has he? I think last season as well. I think he struggled through injuries. I think 2020-21 season in the Premier League, what did he get? 17 goals. People were thinking he should have gone to the Euros with England. The thing with Bamford, he's got to be 27, 28, 29 now. I'm not too sure, but he's had so many clubs on loan. He's been here, there, and everywhere. He hasn't really settled. Hasn't really found a home. He found a home at Chelsea. He took to the club and its fans took to him, and he's a goal scorer. He scores all types of goals. Got a lovely left foot. He's got good movement. I don't think he's got electric pace, but it's just a case of, can he stay fit? I think he's one of these players that breaks down quite easily, and that's why over the past 18 months, I think he's got 2 goals in his last 17 appearances for Leeds United, and it's all because he hasn't been fully fit. And if they can get Patrick Bamford back to where he was a couple of seasons ago, firing on all cylinders, making those runs, because he plays up there on his own. He doesn't play up there with a partner. If they can keep him fit, then they'll be confident they can pull away from the relegation zone.
Is he the type of player, the type of forward, Ewan, that you enjoy watching, Patrick Bamford, particularly when he's on it and on form?
Yeah, he's got good awareness. He's got a good first touch. As I say, he sort of glides past players. Not that he's electrically quick. I think he's a worker. I think it all stems from him, especially when Bielsa was there. I think he was the trigger point for the rest of the team when Bamford went and closed the back 4 down. The rest of the team sort of went with him as one unit. As I say, Dan, for 5 or 6 seasons, he never really settled. He went here, there, and everywhere. Went from one loan move to another, but he found his spiritual home at Ellen Road. He loves it there. The club love him. The club. I mean, Leeds fans, they love a centre forward that scores goals, and that's what Patrick Bamford does for you. It's that big question: can they keep him fit from now until the end of the season?
You were saying earlier, Matt, about Leeds. When they're on it, they can look really good and they can really harass and harry you. But if they're not on it, they can be punished. So how do you make them not be on it, do you think? Is that starting well? Is that keeping the ball for at least the first 10 or 15
Well, yeah,
minutes?
you've got to show the quality yourself, haven't you? Be ready. Again, Danny Ward mentioned it. One, initially match their intensity. That word pops up again, but show quality on the ball. To get round the press, to get round the harrying and closing down. And sooner or later, you'll find openings because they're sort of can be quite committed in how they try and shut you down. And holes appear, but listen, easy to talk about. Different kettle of fish actually going out and performing it. So, but that's what you have to do. Premier League standard sides. You mentioned it there about Leeds having a bright start, and on the face of it, if you sort of listen to the general views on Leeds, and it'll be positivity coming out of there. But you look at the league table, they're not in that healthier position. So. Obviously not everything is quite as rosy as people might like to put out there. So, Leicester have got the capabilities tonight. But back themselves as well. Remind themselves what they are capable of up against this opposition. But talking about Bamford there, you're saying Ewan likes to see him, but you can see certain similarities possibly in the type of striker.
Maybe, yeah, both quite tall, elegant Ewan.
Yeah, well, Ewan says he scores goals. That has been Bamford's problem, not scoring enough goals, hasn't it, up until the last couple of seasons. But fitted in well at Leeds. There's a few similarities. He's a quite intelligent boy as well, apparently. The only thing is, he's a good-looking boy, and that's where the similarities end.
Right, let's save Ewan's blushes now and go to Jerry Taggart, who is in the press box here at King Power Stadium. Jerry, obviously you're watching the warm-ups, probably listening intently, hoping that Matt didn't turn his attentions to you there. Good evening, firstly, to you.
Well, I just heard my name. I was just awoken from a bit of a slumber, from being honest, Stan. So, good evening, chaps. How are we all?
Gerald, good mate.
And yeah, carry on, Dan.
Sorry, all good here. Thanks, Jerry. What are you expecting this evening?
Well, it's just interesting listening to you guys talk about Leeds in particular. We know how they're going to try and play. So for me, Leicester, first and foremost, have the match at. You've got two teams still looking for a bit of momentum, a bit of confidence. Leeds struggling away from home, similarly in the way to what Leicester are. Leicester at home, decent performance without the result on Saturday. Can they build on that? Can they keep Leeds' confidence to a minimum? And how you do that is, like I said, first and foremost, you've got to match them physically. And Matt mentioned they can either be successful with the way they play, or else they can get opened up. So they've got to be composed and deliberate in possession. And I quite fancy us, if I'm being honest, tonight. I really do. Vardy starting tonight, which is good. Dagger's done well, but I think the way Brendan sort of chopped and changed them too, I think it's a good game for Jimmy Vardy tonight.
Yeah, I know you weren't actually here for it, Jerry, you were away, but the Nottingham Forest game we've referenced already a couple of weeks ago, the atmosphere that night was absolutely electric. Are you getting the sense maybe now, what are we, about 20 minutes or so away from kick-off, that hopefully it'll be the same again this evening?
Yeah, I'm hoping. I don't see it so far, but I don't see that the ground is still pretty empty, if I'm being honest. I would say probably 70% empty. There's, obviously there's a lull in the build-up regards to the music that's being played. They're just showing some old videos of goals that have been scored against Leeds. I still can't get my header on there against Leeds in that 3-1 win.
I was going to bring it up, Jerry. Out-jumped Rio Ferdinand, didn't you?
Yeah, well, and Lucas Radebe as well. Still can't get on that big screen somehow, but there you go. There you go. Never mind. But yeah, listen, I'm sure the fans, as usual, play a vital role. And that's why, well, I would say one of the reasons why Leeds struggled away from home this season, like Leicester. Going away from home is not an easy task to try and get a result in this league. And so Leicester have to make sure that poor run of form continues for Leeds.
Well, thank you very much, Jerry. We'll hear from you again, of course, just before kick-off on co-commentary duty alongside John Dunn. Let's get a very quick reminder of tonight's team news. Leicester City, there was certainly one enforced change, wasn't there? We know that James Maddison misses the game through suspension, but Jamie Vardy also comes into the starting 11. They line up with Danny Ward in goal, the back four as it was at the weekend. Justin, Amate, Fass and Castagna, the midfield three as it was at the weekend. Samari, Dewsbury Hall and Tielemans, with Barnes and Pratt either side of Jamie Vardy. And the visitors under Jesse Marsch, as we said earlier, this was his first game in the Premier League last season back in March. He has Meslier in goal, Firpo, Lorente, Koch and Christensen are the defence. Rocker and Adams in midfield, with Sinistera, Aronson and Somerville in behind. Lone striker Patrick Bamford. As we said there, obviously Jesse Marsch's first game in charge in the Premier League of Leeds United was here. He managed to keep them up at the end of last season on the final day. As we've already alluded to, they've made a fairly slow start to this season. So let's hear what Brendan Rodgers has to say about his opposite number this evening.
Yeah, I like Leeds. I've obviously Jesse come in towards the end of last season and kept them up. They've been able to change half the team in the summer, and there's a lot to like about them. The players that they brought in fit the profile of how Jesse wants his teams to play. So they play with an intensity and they play with the pressure, and they can make it really difficult for you. So yeah, they've obviously not won in their last numbers of games, but they'll still be a dangerous opponent who have some very good players.
This week, off the back of the point against Palace, could be a pivotal week. You know, if you were to get 2 victories, suddenly everything's looking not as doomy and gloomy as it has been.
Well, listen, I think that's the nature of the season. You know, you just want to look to the next game. I think that's what's important. You know, you can't bring them in together. It's always the next game, and for us, we can defend with the same aggression and mentality that we have done in the last game, and then bring that offensive game and take that bit more risk to get in, then we have a chance of winning. So, but that's the process. You know, it's I know a lot of people purely just look at the result and from the weekend and see that we haven't won, but we actually had a decent performance, and that's what you're always looking at as a manager in the process of getting that confidence back and getting that feeling back, which, you know, we send the teams out to win, and that's what we'll look to do on Thursday as well.
There is a lot of positivity around this. You wouldn't know that this team was in the position it's in when you drive into the training ground, when you speak to the players, would you?
No, I think we've always tried to have an optimism here since I've come in, and I know that not every day is sunny like today, and especially when you haven't made the greatest start. But the only way you get back to your level is by being as positive as you can with the players, reinforcing the areas, like I've said, that we need to be better in. But always looking to progress. You know, we know we haven't made the start that we would have liked, but there's only one way in order to improve and develop, and that's to have that optimism that we can. So I see enough every day in the players, and we give them that confidence to go into each game to get a result. So if we can take that in, and that's what we would want, rather than be going in flat and disappointed.
How impressed were you with the leadership qualities shown by Wout Faes against Crystal Palace? Because he seemed to marshal that back line quite well. Yeah, he was excellent. You know, I think he settled in really, really well. Just adapting and coming into the Premier League and to showing the qualities that he has. He's been very good. So it doesn't surprise me, just in terms of his knowledge of the game. You know, he understands football. He understands that his first job is to defend. You know, he's aggressive in the air. He defends forward, and like I said, he's good in his passing range. So, but those leadership qualities are absolutely vital for any team, and he definitely possesses that.
That's Brendan Rodgers, of course, looking ahead to the game this evening. We've only got time for a couple of quick predictions from you both. Starting with you, please, Matt. How do you see it going tonight?
I might draw my prediction out a little.
Oh, okay.
Am I allowed? Oh, no. Okay, I'll get told off. Hang on. I'm going to go bog standard 2-1 Leicester. I think that's the most likely result.
Ewan?
I'm going to go for the Leicester 3-0 with another clean sheet. You know, 4 points in the last 2 home games at the King Power. Leeds have lost their last 3 away games. They've only got 1 point in their four away games this season. I think Leicester will replicate what they did against Nottingham Forest, 3-0 win.
Short prediction. Don't go into stats and all that, Ewan.
No, I appreciate it. He does my job billing the game up for me just before we hand over to our commentary team then of John Dunn and Jerry Taggart ahead of this game, of course, against Leeds United. Back under the lights here at King Power Stadium, and it's another massive one. We're 15 minutes away now from kick-off.
Because memories never fade, no matter how long. We'll still remember the moments of excitement and the impressions of Thailand. Amazing Thailand, now even more amazing.
Lamiat is the belief that perfection lies within the details, where the finest ingredients deserve the finest craftsmanship. In every pursuit of perfection, there is passion and perseverance, where attention to detail inspires a masterpiece that's balanced and in harmony. This is the Lamiat philosophy, brewed into every drop of Chang beer. This is the taste of Thai perfection. Chang beer. We brew friendship.
Good evening, everybody. It's Thursday night live on LCFC Radio, and it's Premier League action with City back here on their own turf. Just 5 days since the last game here at King Power Stadium. Leeds United, the opposition tonight in another huge game here on Filbert Way. Well, big names for big games. Jerry Taggart, former Leicester defender, former Northern Ireland international, alongside us this evening for a huge game at the bottom end of the Premier League table, Jerry. And the fans now starting to file into the stadium. Almost similarities, and again, Dan mentioned that you were here for the Forest game, but similarities in terms of where the teams are. Probably the feeling of the fans as they're coming into this one. That could quickly change if Leicester can start as well as they did against Forest a few weeks ago.
Yeah, it goes without saying, doesn't it, that a good start to the game is massively important, John. You know, you're looking at the table, Leeds on 9 points, Leicester on 5. And already you're looking at it as a bit of a 6-pointer, in all honesty, for Leicester. So there's a lot of pressure on this game being felt, not only by the players, the manager, the coaching staff, but by the fans as well, because everyone understands how important this game is.
Looking at some famous, iconic moments on the screens. You mentioned it before. They look back at some of the goals against Leeds. They didn't put the best one on, which was yours.
No, goal of the season, John.
The second best one was Lilian Nalas. You were on the field that day. You probably had the best view of it. And as he's lining that one up, are you thinking, no?
Yeah, don't do it, Lilian. Don't do it. And he did it. Fair play to him. By Jove, he did it. He pulled off an absolute cracker.
This is where you say he does it all week in training, or did it all week in training.
Well, you knew he had that ability, Lilian, to be fair. He could play football with or foot. So, even though it was on his predominantly weaker left foot, you know. I'm not saying it was it wasn't a shock. Of course it was scoring a goal like that, but if anybody was going to pull it off, there's only one or two players on the pitch that even could have done it in the Leicester shirt, and the other one was obviously Muzzy, is it?
The highlights of that game, they're on the website today, and there was, and you can claim the assist for a brilliant 4-0 win, an iconic win. It was a brilliant Jerry Taggart tackle. I think the cop end of the ground quite early on, can't remember the Leeds player.
Yeah,
but there we go. It was a stunning tackle that set the game up for the win.
Yeah, probably one of the best challenges I ever made, actually, I'd have to say, in that game. And I also had a header that was going in, and it hit Paul Robinson in the head. He saved it with his head of all places and not his hands. So I should have scored that night. And as you said, I made a challenge that would stick long in the memory of your defender. I was pretty proud of that one.
If you've not seen it yet, Blue Army Leicester fans, check it out after tonight's game. Last season it was 1-1 at Ellen Road, it was 1-0 here. Harvey Barnes scored in both games, and he's got a great record against Leeds. He's with Leicester and when he was on loan at West Brom, 5 goals in 6 games against Leeds. He scored in all 4 Premier League games against Leeds United. And is it the case, Jerry, sometimes a player just has that lucky club for whatever reason? They will continue to have that run of luck, and hopefully that continues for Harvey tonight.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You know, we spoke, how many times we spoke about Jamie Vardy and the clubs that he scores against, and it won't happen all the time, but let's face it, how much could we do with a Harvey Barnes strike tonight against a team that he seems to do really well? So yeah, for whatever reason, you know, Harvey seems to have a bit of a march on Leeds, so touching wood, crossing fingers, eyes, legs, and every other part of my body I can physically cross, and hopefully that run continues.
Well, the lights have gone out inside King Power Stadium, and they start to flash into life as they build towards kick-off, trying to raise the atmosphere. The fireworks in action again over on the far side of the field in front of the East Stand. And Jerry Ewan and Matt talked about it earlier, late kickoffs, and I know you're a big fan of a late kickoff when you were a player. You don't get any later than 8:15. You'd have loved this. The amount of sleep you could have got for a 8:15 kickoff.
I'd have had 4 hours sleep this afternoon, John, before I would have had to get up and start eating my pre-match meal and preparing. Oh, this is dreamland for me, believe you me, yeah. Just everyone's different at the end of the day, aren't they? You know, some players didn't like going to sleep in the afternoon, but I have to tell you, I absolutely loved it. Having a nice kip before the game, go and jump in a nice hot bath, get stretched off, get your game face on.
Would some players go the other way and not enjoy night games because the day is so long building up to the kickoff?
Yeah, you know, I'm not saying that interfere with their performance on the pitch, but I think mentally, you know, some players like playing on a Saturday afternoon. I had no problem playing on a Saturday afternoon, but a night game for me just meant I could get up, do a bit of training, and go back to bed and just get that extra bit of rest, recovery. And I just, for whatever reason, I just felt a little bit better when it was an even game.
For the players, certainly this modern age, and it's summed up by the last 5 days for Leicester. 12 o'clock here on a Saturday, 8:15 here on a Thursday, then a Sunday kick-off again. And mentally, there's probably a lot for the players to take in and adjust sleep patterns, eating patterns, and they're well supported by the medical and sports science team in that.
No, absolutely. That's a big part of the sports science team now, is, you know, trying to juggle all these different football times that we're getting in the modern day game. And not only that, as well as that, you know, you bring in all the travelling that you do if and when you enter into European Championship, you know, European football, should I say. So yeah, it's a big juggling act, and what they try and do is try not upset or disrupt a player's flow, ebb and flow, or his rhythm, his regime that he has on any given, you know, normal week. But obviously, with the different kick-off times, it's going to come in somewhere, somehow.
And Leicester's just starting to maybe put some building blocks into place here at King Power Stadium. That 4-0 win against Forest, then the 0-0 draw. Although not a victory, it's 2 unbeaten here. It's back-to-back clean sheets, and you're just feeling that they're starting to get a bit of confidence from that?
Yeah, well, let's hope so. You know, it's an important start, especially the clean sheets. All right, they didn't score, but you know, they were the better team on the day. There's, you know, I don't think even Patrick Vieira would whinge about that one. I thought Palace were a tough nut to crack. I have to give them credit. Defensively, I thought they were really solid. They defended the box with numbers, and it was hard for Leicester to break them down. I'm not so sure with the way Leeds play it's going to be exactly the same tonight, and that's the way I'm hoping. Let's put it that way.
Leeds coming here without an away win, so much on tonight's game for both of these teams, and both sets of players have emerged from the changing rooms and are gathered somewhere below us in the bowels of King's Power Stadium, awaiting the nod from the officials to enter the field. The lights have been switched back on. We've had the light show, we've had the music blaring out from local band Kasabian, and it's the Leeds fans at the moment who are finding their voice, packed over in that far corner, a sellout in the away section. And as we glance around the King Power Stadium, not too many empty seats on show as the Blue Army make their way to King Power Stadium. Leicester City and Leeds United enter the field here at King Power Stadium on a Thursday night under the bright lights which have guided the Blue Army up Filbert Way to cheer on a City side who have earned back-to-back clean sheets on their own patch, in which they have won one and drawn one. Although tonight's opposition, Leeds United, are yet to win away from home this season and have gone 6 without a win, home or away, in the Premier League. Tonight they face a Foxy side in a fixture City have lost just once in the last 8 meetings. In terms of the team news, and starting with the home side, Leicester City, 2 changes following the latest game here at King Power Stadium. 5 days ago it was a 0-0 draw with Crystal Palace. James Maddison picked up a booking, means he's suspended tonight. He's replaced by Dennis Pratt. Another change is in the forward line, where Jamie Vardy comes in to replace Patson Daka. Ward is the Leicester goalkeeper. It's a defence of Castagna, Amate, Fass and Justing, Samara, Tillemans and Dewsbury Hall in midfield, with Pratt, Vardy joining Barnes in the Leicester City attack. 4 changes for the visitors Leeds. They were beaten 1-0 at home to Arsenal on Sunday. 1 is in force. Patrick Struijk is injured. Junior Firpo replaces him. Rodrigo, Liam Cooper and Jack Harrison all moved to the bench. They're replaced by Patrick Bamford, Diego Llorente and Crysencio Somerville, who makes his first Premier League start for Leeds United. Millier, the goalkeeper. Christensen, Llorente, Koch and Firpo is the defence. Adams and Rocker are the 2 holding midfielders, with Aronson, Sinestra, Somerville in behind the lone striker Bamford. Teams going through their final stretches before kick-off, and Leeds arrive in Jerry without an away win. 4 efforts so far in the Premier League, 3 defeats and a draw. How did they come into this one? How are they thinking, well, how can we turn this away form round, knowing that Leicester have improved here at King Power Stadium?
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? You heard Jesse Marsh talk about the performances. Narrowly beat away at Arsenal. It's be disappointing for them, and they'll take a lot of positives from that game. And for me, I think, as far as they won't change their tactic, you know, they play that certain way, and that's not going to change now. Obviously, it'll slightly change from when Bielsa was here, but I think that sort of attitude of in your faces, on the front foot at all times, we're still going to see that tonight. It's important for me again, because Leicester want to play out from the back, and the 2 centre halves are going to come under pressure, and they've got to be absolutely on point with their passing tonight, and in particular Daniel Amate for me, because a couple of times on Saturday he almost made a couple of mistakes being put under pressure, and you would expect that pressure to be amplified a bit more this evening. So very, very important, the full-backs and in particular the 2 centre halves under pressure in possession of the ball, do not make mistakes.
The whole world smiles with you. Blast out over the PA, a roar from the Blue Army as kick-off fast approaches. Will the Leicester fans be smiling tonight as they were on the last night game here at King Power Stadium, the thumping victory against local rivals Nottingham Forest. Straightforward on the kit front, it's all blue of Leicester City against all white of Leeds United, as the Leicester side kick from left to right towards the Kop end where Danny Ward stands, all in black. The Kop fans behind him looking to cheer on their side to